everyone. So today's card, I'm going to walk you through what I've done here. It's actually easier than it looks, but I had to think about it and I had to, get some online help from fellow crafters as to how to do this. So hopefully this is going to turn out okay, and I'm going to tell you the right way around and all that fun stuff. So what I did was, this is a piece of Whisper White Stampin' Up! Cardstock. I had, my card base is going to be 11 by 4 1/4, scored and folded at 5 1/2, and this is the Mossy Meadow. Yes, Mossy Meadow, which is still in the catalogue. I've actually gone through all my stuff, and I now have marked out what's retired because I've been out of it for a couple of years. So this is Mossy Meadow. It's still in the catalogue. If you need a demonstrator, I'm not actually a demonstrator at the moment, although I'd like to be again. And so if you need a demo, I can always refer you to my upline. So that's the card base, and we're going to do something on that in a minute. I've got some early espresso Stampin' Up! Classic ink, again still in the catalogue. I have my Scorpel, which you can't see over there. I also have one of the stamps, and the greeting stamp, and a Stamp-A-Majig, which is an old school thing, but I'm going to show you how this works really well with a rubber stamp when you can't line things up necessarily. If you've got a good eye for it, great. I don't. So to do the technique here, this is, I don't know what you would call this actually, but what you're trying to achieve is a stamped image behind an embossed image, if that makes sense. So can you see this is raised, the trees are all raised, and then the images are, they look like they're behind the trees. So what you have to do is, well, let me tell you the stamp and the stamp set and embossing folder I used. So I used the Woodland Textured Impressions embossing folder from Stampin' Up! And it's a big 6x6 stamp plate, but this is what the whole image looks like. Embossing folder, sorry. And then I used the Nature Sings Stampin' Up! Stamp set, and it's a red rubber stamp set. I store mine in pockets rather than the cases they come in, just because it's easier for me. So that's why I've done that. And this is just a piece of laminated cardstock that they cling really nicely to. So what I did was I took the embossing folder, and I will show you as much as step by step as I can, without doing it on camera as such. So where you've got the name, so Sizzix Stampin' Up!, that bit you're going to open up, so that's essentially at the top. And this is the bit where the trees are indented, if you like. So this is kind of like the flat bit. And this side, on the bottom half of your folder, is where you'll feel the trees are actually raised up. So when you put your card in, what's going to happen is these raised pieces are going to push into the not raised pieces and create that look of embossed. That's basic embossing for you. So in order to get the stamped image to look like it's behind the embossed raised bit, the side that has your label that we've opened up, which is now at the top, is the bit that you're going to stamp your images onto. So what you will do, if I just show you, okay, that's a different stamp, but so if this is the image I wanted to stamp, obviously you would use a bigger block. What I would do is I ink up my stamp, and then somewhat firmly but carefully you want to then decide where you're going to work with, how big your piece of paper is as well, and you're going to then stamp down onto this top half of your embossing folder, and you're going to press the same amount of pressure like you would any stamp. It is a bit of a practice. I actually had to cut this down because his back legs didn't stamp as well, So first time I've ever done this, so it turned out better than I thought it was going to. So you'll stamp with your ink on this, and I would use a dye-based ink for this technique. You might be able to use a permanent, but you'd need to be, I guess, work quicker with it because it will dry quicker than a dye ink. A dye ink you can always huff on or like breathe on it, and it reactivates the moisture in it. So once you've stamped it like that, you'll take it off like you would normally. I actually did 2 images, but that's fine. Then if you wanted another image, then just, you know, keep going. So I've got these little guys in the background as well. So then what you do, and I'll place this as much as I can on here. Oh, I must have done it over here. You then place your cardstock on top of that. Don't shift it, just hold it down there, right? Then you're going to close your embossing folder, like so. And then you will take that without moving it, and it's easier than it sounds. Take that and run it through your Big Shot or your Cuttlebug like you would normally emboss using the plate configuration that you would do to emboss using an embossing folder. And when you then take it out, I would also go a little careful just because it may, the ink, if it's still a bit wet, it may move. But you take it out and you've got your stamped images in the background of whatever you've embossed. So if this was polka dots and you've got flowers in the background, that's the idea. So whatever your embossing folder is will be in the foreground like it is here. So then you can, if you've got those little sponge dauber things, you know, the little ones that you can put in your finger, you can then use that with another colour of ink and just go over the top of the raised bits to bring the colour out of that. But what I did, and I haven't brought it over, is I used a Cool Grey 1 Copic marker, and I just, on the brush tip side, I just very carefully went along and coloured in the trees just to make them stand out a bit. They're very subtle. To me they're birch trees, which I think have a silver tone. Don't quote me on that, I'm not an expert on trees. But it just brings them out a bit. So it's not, you know, you could do them any colour you like. And then in the background, and this you have to be careful of because any activation of that ink with water or any moisture is going to activate it, and you can see here oh there, I smudged a bit. So, you know, but what I did was I took a what is this, I always forget the names, Crystal Clear Spectrum Noir sparkle pen, right? So it's just a clear ink, but it is water based and water active, and I just went carefully on the flat part, so not the trees themselves because we've done that in the Copic, but on the flat bit, and then hopefully you can see that now the background looks like snow. I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up, but hopefully you can see the sparkle in the background, and it just gave it another level, like it was just another added touch to it. You didn't have to do that. The other thing that you could do is underneath where they stand, again go in with maybe a slightly darker one or even just same Copic and just add a bit of shadow underneath so that they don't look like they're floating in thin air. But I think they work out quite well because there is a bit of a shadow on the stamp itself. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put the card together. So let me just get that out of the way. And what I want to do is, this is a standard A2 size card, or it will be. It is. And what I want to do is I want to stamp the image and then stamp the sentiment, sorry, and then I want to add another bit of detail just because otherwise it's quite a plain looking card. But the idea behind this is to show you the technique. So hopefully I've explained it well enough. If not, let me know and I will try and actually do the technique on camera. I honestly had never done it before, so I didn't want to do that while I was faffing about. So now I have a better idea of what I need to do. I will be happy to show you that in more detail if you need to, but hopefully that kind of explains how the basics of how to do it. And you can explore different embossing folders with different stamps. Like I say, you could have a polka dot embossing folder and a flower background, like a floral sort of thing. And yeah, sky's the limit. You can just create all sorts of things. But I thought the trees and the deer worked really well, especially for a Christmas card. So in order to do the, now we're on Stampin' territory. So let me just change the battery. My battery's going to die, so I'm just going to change that quickly and I'll be back. Right, I'm back. So with the Stampin' for those who don't know, it's basically a piece of plastic. One side's super shiny and has a bit of grip on it. I mean, it's not actual grip, but it will help to not move, although it'll probably slide on this. And the other side's a bit textured and slightly frosted. Then you have this little doohickey handle thingamabob. This is an Inkadinkado one. Stampin' Up! Used to do one. I don't think they do it anymore, but you can find this online. Amazon's got them, so just a case of getting one. And I think it's good to have this as well as a stamping platform, because with this you could be more precise, especially if you are stamping sentiments with red rubber stamps. With a clear stamp you can see through it, so it's easier to actually see where you're stamping, whereas with these, especially when there's a lot of detail on it, like a lot of writing or fancy wording, and my dog's barking, it's harder to do that. So what you do, get your stamp pad ready, your ink, sorry, put your stamp on the block, and what you don't want to do is you don't want to move this while you're doing this. Don't move it off, don't change the position of this, as is, right? You're going to put this plastic into the corner of the handle here. You're then going to ink up your stamp, right? Don't worry about the edges or any of that. You're going to put, so right way up, you're going to put this corner into the corner of the Stampin' over here, and you're just going to stamp it down. Hi, sorry about that. Hubby had lunch ready for me. Anyway, so as I was saying, you would ink your stamp and stamp it into that corner. Now what you do is you take, this is essentially your template. So what you'll do is you'll take this to your card. Let's see what's the best way for me to do this. I need something to weight that down. Right, we're just going to wing it. So you're going to take it to your card and you're going to put it where you want it on the card itself. So you can line it up. In fact, let me just, you don't want your card to move, so I think I will grab, which I can't find either, a bit of washi tape or something. There you go, a bit of poster tape, that'll do. So I've used my grid line to line up the card, and that's just so that the card doesn't move. Okay, so then you're going to take what is your template and you're going to line it up where you want it to be on your card. And I don't always line this up in the middle, but you know, it's as straight as I think it's gonna be. And then what you're going to do is you're going to bring your handle back in and put the corner of the handle back into the corner of the template. So you're just going to gently line them up like so, and then you're going to hold on to the handle and get rid of this. Right? Oh, and I haven't got my... You don't really want to let go of that, but you want to have your ink and everything ready. You wouldn't have your husband calling you in the middle of that. So normally you could do it all in one swoop and you wouldn't have to close your ink pad. Right, so now you're going to take your ink. You've got this lined up. Take your stamp, sorry, re-stamp it, ink it. I have done other videos on this as well, like in other I think maybe in one of the Christmas ones from last year. So you've got your stamp inked again, and you're going to do the same thing. Make sure it's the right way up. Put the corner of your stamp block into the corner of your Stampin' Majig, and you're going to press down, and in my case hope for the best. Ta-da! And now it's where you want it, where you wanted it, I should say. So take this bit off. So now you've got it placed where you want it, and that's not bad for me. I don't normally get it that straight. So the other thing I wanted to do is, this is essentially a one layer card. I mean, I know we have this panel that's going to go on, but it's kind of a one layer, more or less. You could easily have had it as a one layer card if you had like the section inked and whatnot, but I wasn't going to try and attempt that. So basically that's going to go about there. So now what I want to do is bring my Score Buddy in, and oh sorry, it's a bit crash. Which way do I want to do this? Right, let's do this way. I've opened it up because I don't want, I've got stuff everywhere, sorry. I don't actually want the back of the card to be embossed, but I want to add a bit of detail to the front of the card. So I've lined up the edge where we've got our sentiment up against the corner of the Scorpel, and I'm going to line up roughly where I'm going to have my panel, so about there, and then I'm going to decide what lines I want to use. So I think I want to use that one and that one. So I'm just marking it just so I've got an idea on the card base. So I've only just marked them, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn them over, and yes, they're at the bottom there. So what you could have done, sorry, rewind, you could have just scored all the way down and that make a lovely finishing touch, but I actually want the raised bit out again, so that's why I'm flipping it over, otherwise you'll have it indented. So either way it makes a great like embellishment, if you like. The reason I've flipped it over is so that I get the same two lines. So I'm just going back and forth, scoring those lines, and now you have this bit of detail. And I may even do it a bit more. Like so. So there's just an added bit of embellishment, I guess. The other thing you can do as well is try and line up in between so that you land up with 3 lines. So you would have to, you definitely have to eyeball that bit. I'm not very good at that, so I don't think I want to even try this. Oh, hold on, there's one there. So on your Scorpel, and I think there's a newer version of this where I think you might be able to get a third one in here and it's not in the same place. And that's fine. It's not quite how it was going to be, but it's fine. There's a bit of detail there. Maybe don't do that. So that's the detail I've now got, but it's slightly off, so it looks a bit funny. But you can get 3 lines in there if you play around with it, or if you've got a school pal. I believe the little one's got what's that, 1/8 inch what's the word, sections all the way along the board, rather than this being sort of only every so often. But that's fine. We're gonna go with it. It still looks pretty. It just adds detail, and you can do that on any card. You can do it all the way around the card. You can do it if you've got you know, a smaller panel. You can edge around the edge of where your panel will then sit. So there's lots you can do with it, and it's just a fun way to add a bit more detail. So I've put tape all the way around just because it is an embossed piece, so it will tend to want to it kind of like twists. So if there's not enough tape to hold it down, it will want to kind of move a bit. So there you go. Bit of a long-winded way of doing things, but it's just finishing touches, little added things. The colour I used down here is the same colour I used there, so that ties that in. So yeah, hopefully, like I say, I've explained it well enough for you guys. If not, let me know, and I will, you know, attempt to do a video where I show you step by step so you can actually see what happens. But it's very cool, and I encourage you to try it. So there you go, guys, another Christmas card ready. See you later. Bye.